I knew he was, I called him last week. So.
Very good.
Yeah. All right, well, hope for the best. Council ready? Okay. I'll call this workshop and meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please, Twyla.
Councillor Garrison?
He's excused.
Excused, okay. Councillor Lunt?
Here.
Councillor McTevier is excused?
He is
Okay. Councillor Bickford?
Here.
Councillor Ward?
here.
Councillor Pesky?
Here.
And Councillor Brunel?
Here.
Okay, the first item, Twyla.
Is the proposed amendments to the fee schedule?
Okay. We had a workshop looking at possible savings and increases in revenues that Mr. Olmsted had presented us. And we had decided that we needed to workshop that again. Jessica, you helped us out with that. Did you have anything you wanted to present or say or anything?
No, it was just be looking for guidance on where you guys want to go with the fees.
Okay. So if we take a look at the fees, we've already looked at this once. Although Councillor Mativier isn't able to be here, I did talk with him about his concerns, and I think they might be reflected by some other folks. He was concerned that some of the fees went up a little bit too much. And Jessica, actually, I'm probably going to ask you a lot of questions. I'm sorry. So if you could, that's all right. But we also know that there were some fees that were in place, like the fines through the police department and stuff like that, that just weren't reflected in the schedule, although they were current. Were there any fees other than the police department fines?
Not that we saw. The only ones in question, and again, I'm not sure why, but the updates that you see are what they're currently being assessed at. So for some reason, they had just never been updated within this fee schedule.
Okay. So those are the police department ones, but
Just the police, yep.
okay. So all the other changes that we see on these pages are
True
changes.
True
Okay.
proposed changes, yep.
So I'm just going to start on the first page, and any counselor who wants to jump in. The first question was about the photocopy charges. We actually weren't raising those, but Councillor Mativer was interested in seeing them lowered a little bit.
I think it was Council Pesky that wanted them lowered.
No, Eric did too, and I talked with him on the phone, yeah. Did you want to go into that a little bit, Dylan, or?
Sure. I don't really have anything more to say than I did last meeting about it. I just think that $50, sorry, not $50, 50 cents for a one-sided copy and then 75 cents for a two-sided copy is a little high, especially when the library director informed us that they charge 10 cents a copy down there. I believe that's one side, I'm not sure. I do understand the difference between having a town employee having to go and make the copies compared to at the library,
Yep.
but I do think it's a little steep still.
If I can offer a little further elaborate.
Just make sure it is pointed right at you. Directly at you.
Okay, sorry about that. If I can offer some further insight to this, primarily what we have here in the town office are like real estate agents coming in and asking, assessing about property cards and having to do the research to pull the cards, make the copies for them. Sometimes it's, you know, through emails and phone conversations where they're asking to be sent this information. This is not not generally utilized by your average residents like it is at the library where they come in. So that's the primary difference, is that this is more than just my front counter ladies running over to make a quick copy. This is someone coming in looking for greater information than bringing something in and just saying, I need a copy of this, like it would be at the library. So that is my understanding of why this would be a little bit more. There's more labor time on the behalf of staff and the clientele that's coming in and what they're requesting, versus at the library, it's somebody that is doing research and has the book and everything already, and hey, I just need to go make a copy of this myself. So that was the primary difference.
What's the total per year again? Can you remind us? Just approximate is fine.
I want to say it was 400, and the library
Around
was
400.
8, something like that, yep.
Okay. I would like to hear from each of the counselors who are here on how they feel about it. I don't think we should spend an awful lot of time, not because it's not important, but because we have a lot of important things to cover. But my feeling is this is what we've been charging. We haven't raised the rate, and it hasn't really been a hardship that we can see for people. And I think I think the staff are considerate of the people coming in. And if there were a situation where somebody would need assistance with paying for something like that, I would think that the staff are considerate enough to take that into account. And
Say something?
yes.
I've did my due diligence and asked 3 local contractors that do work outside of this town, and they all said that they understood, because we were always lower than the other towns around us. So,
I mean, in general, on the
yeah,
other things.
on building permits and everything else, where they understood that we're bringing them back up to what everybody else is, and they just understood it. They weren't, they kind of said, well, it's going to cost me more, but, that's life. So, I don't see a big, I've gone over it 3 or 4 times, and I don't see, it's a way of doing it. We're just bringing things up to what other people charge.
That is correct.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to, on the building permits, it hasn't been that long that MUBEC has been in place, and that has changed the way the code enforcement has to do business. And, they have to do a lot more work. Luckily, I haven't had to deal with that because our community was small enough, but I know Lisbon does because of the size community. But the amount of work that they have to do because of the MUBEC laws is incredible. So I think that that's very fair what you're proposing to charge under the building and construction, considering all the extra work that the personnel here have to do.
On the copies, would it be possible to have some kind of a bulk rate? If somebody's going to copy, make 20 copies, they can get a, discount rate of, 25 cents instead of 50 for everything over the first 10 or something. That way we wouldn't, make it a hardship for when, people come in and ask for, records or something here. It wouldn't be, free. But if somebody needs to make a copy of a, 50-page report, they're not paying $25. I think that might be a suggestion, have a bulk rate.
You would think you would send them to the library then.
Yeah, but I mean,
It's only
The majority of the people today that live in the neighborhood, most of them have a computer, most of them have a printer right there.
I mean, to copy town documents, not to copy their personal
Correct,
stuff.
yeah. But, I don't know, to me, Jessica and her staff, that's why we hired them. That's what they know. That's their job. That's why them numbers are there. Us nickel and diamond them ain't making this go any, anywhere that I see.
And Chris, we finally agree on something.
Again, there's a lot of stuff that we dispute right here on this panel, that the people that we pay to do the job, we shouldn't be squabbling with Jessica about a 50-cent copy. We should have nothing, that's nickel and diamond to me, and that's why we pay her. Our job is for the bigger stuff that really affects the whole community, not the couple dozen people that come in here over the course of the year, and we 400, it's 800 pages. You're not talking about hardly nothing to this community. Again, you're doing a great job.
I think, thank you, Councilor Brunel, because I think that does reflect how a lot of folks feel, not just the council, but some folks I've talked to in town. I wonder, Councilor Pesky, I know that there were other items that were in question. I think when I talked with Councilor Mativer about it, that my understanding was that he didn't want there to be a hardship for individuals, for, for the average person who comes in and needs to make some copies of things. I didn't really see any of those kinds of things looking that high, but I didn't know if you could pinpoint some others besides the copies for us that, to make sure we look at it. I want to look at not just the 50-cent thing, because I don't want to dwell on that per se, but I do want to make sure that we look at the individual
The only,
lines and issues.
looking through my records or my notes before our meeting, the only other one that I had mentioned was the Beaver Park fees, $1 and $3. When I went through the stuff for code enforcement, the subdivision stuff and the building permits, I thought that was high, but if it's what our neighboring towns are charging, then we should be with them. So the other piece was the MTM, not MTM, but Beaver Park.
And
Just trying to find it again in here.
when you, I
Page
think.
5 at the bottom.
What was that?
Sorry, it says page 5 at the bottom.
Oh,
if
perfect.
that
I'm on
helps.
page 10.
Oh, okay.
I think I was asking about that too, and we're keeping the entry fee $1 and $3 is what Verla had suggested. And then she had, there's some other fees that were changed, and I'm sorry, can you refresh my memory about which things that?
That I was talking
Yeah.
about? It was, the only two that I talked about were the copies and the Beaver Park.
But there's more than one fee.
Oh, the
Entry fees.
resident and non-resident.
Okay, so
3.
I think she brought that back down, because that's $1 and $3.
that's what it was before, because
Yeah.
Verla didn't want
That's what
to
it's been
raise
for
it.
20 years.
Yeah. Okay. So just to get a feeling about how council feels on this, what, how do you feel about the $1 and $3 fees?
It's like I said the last meeting, you can keep it the same it is, because actually, I think the council's going to have, we're going to be discussing different plans for Beaver Park, so maybe things will change later on.
All right, so how do you feel, Mark?
I think we can discuss Beaver Park, as Roger's saying, as a separate item, because I think that's something we really need to sit down with Verla and, maybe the people from like the Conservation Committee and the Rec Committee, and talk to all those groups in the school and see what they think is fair before we just kind of do it as part of this larger project. So that's what I'd like to see done.
Okay.
I think you may see some differences within these accounts as Verla has recently become set up a little better down at Beaver Park to have somebody at the gate to collect. She did not have that before. So my recommendation would be to give that a budget year to see how these numbers change if people, because what scares me is the comment that she makes that now that she has someone there, people are turning around and leaving over $1. You know what I mean? So if you increase that and you have someone sit there, how many more are you going to have turn away? My recommendation would be let's see how having someone at the gate collecting impacts this line. We may be able to increase it in and of itself because we have someone there collecting. Just
Okay,
my thought.
I think I see a theme coming through, which is to continue to revisit the fees and fines during our next budget season, take a look and see how the changes we've made have affected not only revenues, but how we work, and to see where other opportunities might be. So this, where the fee and fine schedules haven't been visited very recently, then as council, we can make sure that we know that we want to revisit it each budget season, just as a matter of course. So at that point, we won't have those huge raises of costs. It'll be smaller, and it won't be so painful to folks. So,
And along that line, just to add some insight for that, I know the concern seems to be to the individual taxpayer within these, that's going to be impacted by these increases. Currently, right now, because your fees are so low, you're impacting all the taxpayers because they are subsidizing the person that comes in to get a building permit, because it is costing us more than what that individual is paying to get their permit.
Right.
So you have your citizens as a whole subsidizing one-person building, for example, in the community. So this will just allow, because you'll be bringing in more revenue that covers that, you are going to decrease to the general population, which will include that individual that's coming in to get a permit as well.
right.
So.
Miriam, just as a Finance Committee member, because I can see you better than I can see Fern, did the Finance Committee have a chance to look at the fees and fines schedule, or
Not really.
late in the game?
Well, we came under the thought that's not the most important thing right now. Right now is the budget. Fees and fines, yes, they need to be reassessed. It's been quite some time since they've been reassessed. But on the level of importance, it's not quite as important as getting a budget. If I may,
Sure.
it won't take too terribly long. I'm going to tell you the parable of the F-84. At the beginning of the Korean War, the federal government decided that their old F-84 Thunderstreak was not able. So they put out some specifications for an upgrade on their F-84. They wanted to have swept wings, a service ceiling of 50,000 feet, and be capable of doing Mach 1 in level flight. By the time the engineers were finished, they had an aircraft with a 46,000 feet service ceiling and reached Mach 9.1. They decided to take that aircraft and put it into production and get it online so it would buy them the time that they needed to finish developing the F-86, which is, as most people will know that have studied the Korean War, was our premier fighter at the time. Your budget that you have in front of you is your F-84. Now then, the Finance Committee did in fact recommend, and it has not been discussed or acted on since, but we would like to reiterate that there's $166,000 that the council can recover from the school department. We would definitely recommend that you go forward and see what you can do. The service charges just don't get down to the level of counting paper clips. All right, the copies. The copies have come up. Taxes and fees are charged for one of two reasons. One is to raise revenue, and the other are social reasons. If the government wants the people to do something, they lower the taxes so that people will be interested in doing it. If they don't want somebody to do something, they raise the taxes so that people will go somewhere else. It's not so much the revenue that's being brought in, it's to discourage or encourage the people to act in a certain manner. As far as the copies are concerned, we're not whatever copy company you want to pick. We don't have a machine out there selling copies. The library does an excellent job. I know I utilize them myself, seeing my printers broken down. Fine. So anything that we do in here is the insurance companies, something like this. We're not in the business of selling copies. Okay. The Walrus said, now is time to speak of many things. And my suggestion to you is, after the budget is voted in, that it's forbidden to mention the word budget in this town office until the 1st of August, upon which time we will all put our helmets on, pick up our picks and shovels, and go forward to the breach. There are other things that need to be done. A town garage comes to mind. And these can be concentrated on without having to, at the same time, try to pass the budget. Get the budget out of the way.
Thank you for your insight, Miriam.
Thank you for listening. And I might add, this is pretty much the same opinion of most of the people on the Finance Committee.
Thank you. Any comment from council? Twyla, do we have this? When do we take action on this? When do we need to take action on this?
Public hearing is scheduled for tonight, and your second reading is scheduled for tonight.
Okay, so knowing that we have a vote coming up later on, a hearing just prior to that, I just want to make sure there aren't some further amendments that council would like to make. Anyone? I mean, two main things have come up, the copies and the Beaver Park fees. What we have on our fee schedule is to leave the Beaver Park fees, and I think that it feels like council agrees. And then the copies are the other issue. It's not a raising of anything. If there's anyone who thinks that we should change that, I would hear a motion, but I just want to make sure I'm not skipping over it.
We can always come back and address that at another time if we feel there's,
Yeah,
people
we're not
feel
limited to
it's a problem.
budget season
Right,
either.
Right,
We
that
can
can
do
be
it
changed
anytime.
anytime.
Okay. So if we have no further discussion from council on the fee schedules? Okay. We'll move out of workshop. Do I need to ask for an adjournment for that, Twyla?
Do you want to recess the workshop and take a break, or you want to just?
I don't think, do we need to take a break? We've only
I think
been
we
here
just
20
adjourn the
minutes.
workshop and start our meeting.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn the workshop then?
I'll make that mo, go ahead.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor of adjourning the workshop?
Order passed,
Thank you.
5-0. Want to reconvene the meeting now?
Why don't we wait just 5 minutes, just because there are folks who are probably planning to come to the meeting itself, and we don't want to start it early. But just a few minutes so that,
Off the tape recorder for now.
thank you. And that came after. I'd have all my stuff spread out.
I wonder who that would be.
I'll give you a hug so you won't feel old.
Talking to me, are you in this conversation or now?
I'm in both.
What I figured.
All right, thank you. Councilors ready? Okay. Okay, we'll call this council meeting to order. We've already had our Pledge of Allegiance and roll call, so the next item, please, Twyla.
We'll begin the meeting with the administration of the oath to the town manager. Would Diane Barnes please join me at the lectern? Right here for the camera. Would you raise your right hand? And repeat after me. I solemnly swear
I solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
and will obey the laws
and will obey the laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Maine,
and the state of Maine,
that I will, in all respects,
in all respects,
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the Charter
of the Charter
and ordinances
and ordinances
of the town of Lisbon,
of the town of Lisbon,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of office
the duties of office
of town manager,
of town manager,
so help me God.
so help me God.
You can sign here. We'll also do your oath for tax collector.
Okay?
And so repeat after me. I solemnly swear
I solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and will obey the laws
and will obey the laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Maine,
and of the state of Maine,
that I will, in all respects,
in all respects,
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the Charter
of the Charter
and ordinances
and
of
ordinances
the town of Lisbon,
of the town of Lisbon,
and will faithfully
discharge the duties
of the office
of the office
of tax
of-
assessor.
tax collector.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right. Welcome.
Thank you.
And our next item, please, Twyla.
The next item is good news and recognition. Lisbon Emergencies recognition of Sergeant Stewart and Officer McGee.
And from Lisbon Emergency, we have Dan Batsey and James McDonnell, who's are the chief.
Okay. Good evening. Thanks very much. My name is Dan Batesy, and I'm the Deputy Chief over at Lisbon Emergency, and we're here tonight to recognize the life-saving acts of two members of the town of Lisbon. Sudden cardiac arrest in America is an epidemic. It claims about 500,000 people a year. It is the single leading cause of death over the age of 40, and it comes with it a mortality rate of 95%, which means that 95 people out of 100 who go into cardiac arrest outside of the hospital will die right there. It's a difficult thing to fix. We've tried a lot of things, and in fact, it's one of the leading studied arms of medicine these days. And despite the conflicting opinions of a variety of different experts, it still escapes us. There is, however, one indisputable truth, one fact that we know really does work, and that is the sooner we get CPR started, the sooner a defibrillator is brought to the patient in cardiac arrest, the more they live. Now, we have done a lot of things to make that work in Lisbon. As a service, we've trained and we've worked on response times and a lot of different efforts to be able to make that possible. But one of the most successful strategies that we've employed is our partnership with Lisbon Police Department. For many years now, the cruisers have brought with them defibrillators and medical gear. The police officers have assisted us on medical calls. And perhaps even more importantly, they've reached patients before the ambulance has been able to reach them. In September of last year, we had just exactly such an episode and saw this strategy really come to fruition. A gentleman called us, a family of a gentleman called us for respiratory distress. On arrival, Officer Ryan McGee and Sergeant Scott Stewart found a patient in cardiac arrest. They obviously recognized the situation is severe. They took immediate action. They began CPR. They employed the defibrillator that they carry. Our crews arrived shortly thereafter and went to work on this gentleman. And through the combined efforts of the officers and our crews, this person survived. Now, I want to say two things about that. And the first thing is that that's a big deal because not many people do. And in fact, survival in that kind of a situation is a pretty rare event no matter where you are. And secondly, it seems like that's a simple statistic, and it seems like, yeah, that's just your business. But I want people to remember that this is an opportunity this person had to go home and hug his kids and walk out of the hospital and have his favorite meal and enjoy life that he assuredly would not have had it not been for the efforts of those involved. So it's really important, this event that we celebrate tonight, this recognition that we give. So on behalf of Lisbon EMS, I would first like to thank Chief Brooks and the Lisbon Police Department for their ongoing efforts and their continued commitment towards emergency medical services in the town of Lisbon. But more importantly, I would like to recognize and commend Sergeant Stewart and Officer McGee for their valiant efforts on behalf of this person. Now, before I award them a certificate of recognition, I would just also hope that this tale has inspired all of you, because truly the citizens of Lisbon are a key in this link of this chain of survival. And that I hope each of you is wondering in your head, what can I do to get better at this, and how can I learn about CPR? Because truly, if we do want to solve this 95% death rate, that's how it's going to happen. So I'm hoping that some of you will come over someday at the station and ask about how you can learn CPR and how we could come and help you learn CPR, but that's another tale for another night. In the meantime, however, I would like again to express our thanks and congratulations to Officer McGee and Sergeant Stewart. Thanks very much. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Batesy. I'd like to extend congratulations on the behalf of council. It not only shows how much hard work our police department, our police chief, and the combined efforts with Lisbon Emergency and other responders, how much it can mean to every individual in town. And it's a moment not only to recognize your hard work and training, but also to be a little bit proud of what Lisbon has done, and I think we all feel that way. I particularly feel close to this because my mother's life was saved just a month ago by CPR, and she's at home having dinner today because of it. And it truly is something that everybody, if you learn it, it can help save a life, whether it's your relative or somebody else's. And it's just a really proud moment for us to be able to recognize our officers. Thank you very much. Do we have any other good news or recognition from council? Okay. We'll move on to the next item, please, Twyla.
Is under public hearings, the renewal special entertainment permit for Eileen Knight doing business as Friends Lodge.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll open the hearing.
Yes.
Thank you. Do we have anyone who'd like to speak about the renewal of the special entertainment permit?
Eileen is in the back.
Eileen, did you want to say anything? You were pretty well hidden back there.
I am. I like it back here.
Come on up.
Oh, Lord. Don't ask me anything hard, just my name.
Okay.
Where I live.
This has been your first year in operation in Lisbon, right?
Correct.
How's it going?
Slow starting, but we're trying to get things up and moving.
Good.
We're having trouble getting some events going, but
Well,
it's hard. I would say we were 8 years in Lewiston, and then all our green people, nobody followed us down. Too far, But we set up a shuttle to come pick you up at your house, take you home. If you drive there and you can't drive home, we'll take care of it. And they're all well aware of it, so.
good. Sounds like it's not only a fun place to go, but a responsible one. We like to hear that.
We're trying to be. We're trying to be.
Any questions from council? No? All right, well, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. I'll close this hearing. We'll move on to the next item, please, Twyla.
is the public hearing for the amendments to the fee schedule.
Okay, at this time, I'll open the public hearing for the amendments to the fee schedule. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on this? Okay.
Dorothy Fitzgerald, Lisbon Falls. I liked Mark Lunt's suggestion on charging more for the first few copies and then less for additional copies. As a Realtor, I go in, and matter of fact, I was in the town office this morning, needed a copy front and back of an assessing card and a copy of someone's deed, and Kathy had to take her time out to go to the file cabinet and get that out, and then go to the next room, make copies. And for me, it's a cost of doing business, and for other realtors as well, and I just don't think that that fee is excessive for me. As far as Beaver Park goes, Verla Brooks has been there for years and years and years, and I just feel that you ought to take her under advisement as to what she suggests, because she's a lady that's there, she's in the know, and she has to work with and see these people all the time. And I hate to see people turned away for a $1 fee. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? I know we already heard from Mary Morgan Alexander a little in our workshop. Is there anyone else? Okay. I'll close the hearing for amendments to the fee schedule. The next item, please, Twyla.
Is under audience participation for agenda items. Those in the audience who wish to address the council for agenda items may do so now. Please use the microphone at the lectern. State your name and address for the record.
Okay, do we have anyone who'd like to speak?
Dot Fitzgerald again. Nice picture in the Times and the Sun Journal this morning for the new river trail. I stopped over there this weekend at the boat launch. I was curious and wondered. I was totally blown away and amazed. The concrete, I thought they were 6 feet wide, and according to the paper this morning, they're 10 feet wide. From the looks at the beginning of it, that's a Taj Mahal of trails. But it's really, really, really impressive. And I'm wondering if the total expense of, oh God, what is it, $1,850,000, oh no, it's going up to what? Anyway, yeah, I guess it's $1,850,000. Does that include landscaping? I would hope that it does, because that's a lot of money, and it's going to need quite a bit of landscaping, shrubs, whatever. Striping bed is on the agenda. I made a copy of most of that, and the company that you're proposing is an out-of-state company, and for $14.59, I wondered if it would be, I know money is an issue. Last meeting, you spend an extra $5,000 for an extended warranty on the plow truck and $35,000 for the trail. But anyway, for a mere $614.59, might be nice to start using our main businesses.
Thank you, Dot. Is there anyone else?
Larry Fillmore from Lisbon. I concur with Dot. I think we need to keep Maine green, keep our money in state. It's only $614, and I think that it would be real good for us to go ahead and do that. Now, the company that Mr. Layton is recommending has had it for the last, I don't know, ever since I've been here. And I think it's time to let these people have an opportunity and keep our money in Maine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fillmore. And is there anyone else who would like to speak on an agenda item? Okay, the next item, please, Twyla.
Is audience participation response?
Okay. Dot brought up the question of charging less for larger quantities. That's something that actually just came up this evening. If we want to jot it down and bring it up during the discussion, when we get to that line in our agenda. And then, Dot, you also asked if the new trail cost includes the landscaping around it. I hate to interrupt you, Ryan, but do you know whether, I don't remember offhand.
There's not a lot of specific plantings, it's mostly loam and seed, it's easy to maintain.
Mostly loam and seed, okay.
At the end, if there's money available, then that was always the discussion that we would look at additional plantings, benches, some of those amenities, but that was not part of the original.
So we might look at additional items down the line, similar to the way we did the first trail.
We've already got people lined up to donate benches, but there's waiting for the trail to be finished, and then we'll start putting those out once we finalize locations.
Okay. I'm only repeating so that the folks watching
Oh, sorry.
can hear. And Mr. Ryan Layton, who's our engineer, has said that there are already people prepared to help with the putting new benches and help with some landscaping. So we'll see how that goes. Okay. The final item brought up by both Mr. Fillmore and Mrs. Fitzgerald was about the striping bid. So this time I'll ask you, Ryan, if maybe you could come up and use the microphone. Because I think the question that they bring up is maybe one that other folks are wondering about too. And for myself, I think maybe if you just explain to us what brought you to that decision a little bit more clearly so that everybody understands.
Do you want to discuss it now or when we get to that agenda item?
If you discuss it now, then we won't have to discuss it so much
Perfect.
later.
I like
We're
it.
going to discuss it no matter what.
Markings Incorporated has been the striping contractor we've used for the last several years. They have been traditionally the lowest bidder, and this council and councils in the past have traditionally gone with the lowest bid, so that's why we made the recommendation. They all perform the same service, meet the guidelines from the MUTCD and DOT standards, so I mean, quite frankly, if the council would like to spend more to keep the contract in state, there's no problem as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we've always just traditionally selected the lowest bidder on this item.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. I think that concludes response to audience participation, unless there are other counselors who would like to add anything. Okay. Next item, please, Twyla.
Is the consent agenda. Any counselor wishing to have an item removed may do so now. Order 2014-114 to approve a renewal liquor license and special entertainment permit for Eileen Knight doing business as the Friends Lodge, and the minutes of June 24, 2014.
Do we have a motion to accept this order?
I'll make the motion to accept.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 5-0.
Now you're all set, Eileen. Okay.
I'll put that in the mail in the morning. Eileen, did you want to pick that up in the morning, or do you want me to put it in the mail for you?
I'll pick it up in the morning.
Okay.
Okay?
We'll have it ready.
Get it right down to Augusta.
Okay.
Thank you.
Under Council Orders, Ordinances, and Resolutions, Order 2014-115 is the amendment to Part 2, Town Council Rules, Regulations, and Policies, Section 8642, Distribution of Purchase Orders. This is the first reading. A roll call vote is required.
Okay, so Jessica, did you want to say anything about this? I mean, your note was clear, but...
I have nothing more to add.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm just getting to the page. Here we go. So what you're doing is cutting down on, you're getting rid of color copies and just saying who gets which copies and how many I'm assuming that this is reducing paperwork and helping things to run more smoothly in the finance department?
To be...
Need a copy of it?
I do, please.
It looks like it's just bringing language and procedure up to date. to me.
Yes, I'm sorry, I had to revisit. This was set up a while ago. Yes, this is just to put in line with what our current procedures are. We no longer have to do paper purchase orders, they are electronic. So this is just realigning that process and making the changes where we actually can just print additional copies if needed versus the distribution of colors for encumbrances and things like that.
Okay. Any questions from council? Thank you, Jessica. Okay, so we'll look for a motion to accept the order for an amendment to Part 2 Town Council Rules, Regulations, and Policies.
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second that.
All those in favor?
We'll do a roll call vote.
Okay.
Counselor Garrison is not here. We'll start with Counselor Bickford.
Yeah. Yes.
Counselor Pesky,
Yes.
Counselor Ward,
Yes.
and Counselor McTevier is not here. Counselor Brunel,
Yes.
and Counselor Lunt.
Yes.
Order passed, 5 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. And the next item, please.
Order 2014-116. This is the name for the cemetery located on map R08, Lot 9, at the end of the Ridland Road.
Okay, so this is, we all have a series of notes and memos about this cemetery.
I believe, Council Chairman, that Garth Gamboys is prepared to show you pictures, a slideshow presentation of the way the cemetery looked and the way it looks today.
Okay.
If you were
We'd
interested
appreciate
in
that.
inviting me forward.
If you could, before you begin, introduce yourself and...
Yes. My name's Garrett Danboys. I'm from Lisbon Falls, but my troop is from Topsom. We're Troop 669. And a little over a year ago, my family's doing our research on our family history, and we found that one of our descendants was from Lisbon, and so we decided to start looking for cemeteries in Lisbon. We found the Ridland Road Cemetery. And what we found was we were saddened because it was all grown in and neglected, and what made it even worse was there was a Revolutionary War veteran who was buried there. And my parents and me were talking a lot about it, and we decided that it'd be a great idea for my Eagle Scout project. So with the help of the BSA and other members of the town of Lisbon, we were able to present it to the BSA Council and got it approved, and we were able to get it going. When we started, we originally thought there was 8 stones, John Blake as well as his family. Today we found 21 other stones, making it a full-size cemetery now. So we decided to clean the whole area, and with the help of my troop and other volunteers, we cleared the area. And what I'm here tonight to discuss is the name of the cemetery, because it has been debated between neighbors and other people whether it should be called the Blake Cemetery, because the majority of the Blake family is buried there, or the Ridland Road Cemetery. The last thing I'd like to show you is some of the pictures of what we've already done to the cemetery, and then you guys can decide.
Right.
So we started out, it was completely bushed in. It looked like any stretch of woods that you'd see in Maine. And it's what it looked like from when we first got there. That was the area with the Revolutionary War veteran. The VFW of the area does come down every year and do a ceremony for Memorial Day. And they normally have to stand on the street because it is so shrubed in. These were three trees. There's actually three there that were dead and leaning up against another one of the pine trees. They were all dead, and we had to bring them down because they were a hazard to all the other stones that we found that were right across from it. And this is during the process of it. It was me cutting the beams that we purchased for the thing, for the box of the area that you'll see. And this is what it currently looks like, what we finished last Tuesday. And this is the volunteers that we have.
Great.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
So we are, I think that's really neat because as Mr. Danbois pointed out, it was as if there were no cemetery there, and they've really done a great service for the town of Lisbon. How many graves altogether?
We now have 30 to 31 graves.
Is there access from the road now?
Yes.
Awesome. And if you would like to just tell everybody else, because we know because we have packets, what your suggestion is for a name for the cemetery.
I would personally like to be it called the Blake Cemetery because of all the members of the Blake family there, and the Blake farmhouse is literally just right across the road from it, and Blake's descendants still live there.
Great. All right. Do any other councilors have any questions for Mr. Danbois?
Thank you for taking the time to do that. It really looks good.
Thank you.
It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We are also looking to, after the cemetery is completely done, to do a rededication of the cemetery with all the veterans from the area and other veterans that want to show up.
Great.
Thank you very much for your time.
Good job.
So we have before us an order to name the cemetery located on map R8, lot 9. The suggestion from the young man who spearheaded the efforts to clean up the cemetery is to call it the Blake Cemetery. Twyla, I just want to make sure that, will I ask for a motion to name it the Blake Cemetery? Okay, so I'll look for a motion to name that cemetery the Blake Cemetery.
I'll make that motion to name the cemetery the Blake Cemetery.
I'll second it.
Thank you. And do we need a roll call?
No.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 5-0.
Thank
Now
you.
Blake Cemetery.
Thank you, Mr. Danbois. And the next item, please, Twyla.
Order 2014-117, street closures for the Moxie Festival.
Right. We have a nice list. If you want to, there she is, Tracy. Okay, good. Okay.
There were a couple of changes from last year. Basically, the road closure is the same. The recommendation from Public Works is to keep the road closed until 8 p.m., allowing crew to go through and really do a thorough job in cleaning up the streets, which is what we want to have. Outside of that, Canvas Commons, we looked at closing that street last year, but we will not be asking to close that street this year. MTM will have petting zoo and free pony rides. I'm sorry, not free pony rides. Free petting zoo and pony rides will be at MTM again this year. And of course, the concert in the evening. And we just thought that we really don't need to close that street as far as for traffic because there wasn't going to be a lot more going on there. We hope next year to bring in more artisans and have demonstrations, and I need volunteers so we can kind of expand a little bit on the festival. So, anybody have any questions?
The only question that I have is, for the past 2 years, when the traffic is stopped on 196 to go up Summer Street from Topsom, or coming down Main Street and they're routed up Edgecombe Road, when we get to High Street and Maple off of Summer Street, a lot of traffic, for some reason, thinks they can go down those roads, and they get down to the end to Main Street.
Can't go.
And they can't go anywhere. And the traffic is so backed up that they all follow each other. So I was down there last year, and we almost had 2 accidents right there because people are just backing up without looking. Is there any way we can get some signs at the end on Summer Street?
They're already being done.
Perfect. Great, thank
I've
you.
already took care of that. They're going to be big signs.
Great, I
Say,
appreciate
if you
it.
want to go to Thompson, Brunswick, you turn this way. If you want to go to Lisbon, Lewiston, you turn this way.
Perfect, thank you.
Great. Any other questions from council? Okay. So we are looking for an amendment, a motion to accept the street closures for Moxie Festival.
I'll make the motion to accept.
And a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 5-0.
Thank you. The next item, please, Twyla.
Order 2014-118, the amendment to the fee schedule. This is the second reading. A roll call vote is required.
Okay. Can we discuss first and then make the motion? Or, okay. I just second-guessed myself. Sorry. So we have discussed this a couple of times already this evening. Are there any amendments that any councilors would see fit?
After Dot came up and mentioned something, I didn't realize it was this. It says less for more. So we probably ought to set a thing, if somebody comes in for 5 copies, it's still the same. After 5, it drops, a little bit, then we can do it that way, if that's all right.
Twyla, what would you, I think that's worth thinking about. What would you say, because you are in the area where you see most of that happening, what would you say, just in your opinion, would be the average number of copies that go in and out? Do most people just get 1 or 2? Is it 10 or 20?
What do you think, Jessica? It's really all over the place.
It is, okay.
I'm not really sure. I can look into it and see if assessing our codes have any further insight, as they are the ones that are the primary drivers of that revenue stream. But it's usually front and backs of property cards, as Dot implied, and
right.
I'm not sure. It will be, the people that request a lot are going to be your real estate developers that are looking for particular areas or subdivisions or things of that nature. Your average residential person is probably only going to look for 1 or 2 at a time. It's not going to be something they come in and ask mass quantities for. So.
Okay.
The freedom of access requests often encompasses sometimes large quantities as well.
So, just in thinking about this, I wonder if we put a dollar amount rather than a number of copies, and say, if it reaches $25, for instance, then, or, I'll accept input from council on that, but.
Or our thought is we could just pass it as is, then we can ask the staff to come back with a recommendation for, something for, what they feel would be fair for bulk copies. If somebody needs to get a copy of a 100-page document for our public access laws, then, it's a little different than somebody that wants to make copies of cards and is coming in, once a week to get copies is a little different. So I think maybe to, just pass as it is and ask staff to make a recommendation on doing a bulk, discount fee.
Okay. I think that's a good idea. How do you guys feel? That way we're revisiting it. So with the direction from council to take the finance director's advice also and take a look, but in the meantime, let these fees stand until.
So there's no other changes? You'd be making a motion to approve the fee schedule amendment as is?
I don't see any. Do we see any? Okay. So we'll look for a motion to accept the amendments to the fee schedule.
I'll make the motion to accept the amendment for the fee schedule as is.
And a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Pesky?
No.
Counselor Ward?
Yes.
Counselor McTevier is not here. Counselor Brunel?
Yes.
And Counselor Lund?
Yes.
We have 4 yes, 1 no, and order passed.
Thank you. I think it might be reasonable to ask for an update on that, and Diane, maybe in a month or so, you know, and, I mean, it shouldn't take that long to look into it, right?
Right.
Okay. And the next item, please.
Order 2014-119, the ballot for election to MMA's Legislative Policy Committee.
Okay.
Typically, you make a motion to cast a ballot for two, and you'll have to pick the two people on the ballot that you want to cast a ballot for. Then you'll sign it after the meeting, and we'll mail it in. You have 3 candidates, and then you have a write-in slot.
Okay. So, just for the sake of clarification for those watching or listening, the MMA looks for, and Councilor Lund, I saw your name on there, maybe you'd be better to describe what it's for.
This is basically the committee that the MMA has to then recommend how their lobbyists should lobby the state legislature on how they should vote for all the upcoming issues in the next year or 2 years here. It'll be 2 years. And then, you know, how they impact towns, and, you know, because we've seen bills in the past that could have had very negative impacts on us. I think we can probably all think of something, but I know there was one with a culvert size where we're going to have to have big, huge culverts if we replaced any. It was a sudden expense there that we weren't budgeting for, and, you know, those kind of things that we need to be in the loop about what's going on. And I think, you know, it gives some advice to them, and, you know, they go up there and vote on how they instruct their lobbyists to instruct, you know, what they recommend for the legislator to vote on.
Thank you. Any other input from any other councilors? And Twyla, do you know,
You can choose to just vote for one, which is Mark Lunt, Councilor Lunt, if you like, or you can
I'd
choose
recommend
to
that.
vote for two. Okay.
I recommend same district, maybe Sarah Hall, Selectman of Town of Durham.
Sarah Hall? Okay.
Can you repeat it again? I didn't catch you.
I said, I make a motion that we vote for Sarah Hall, Selectman, Town of Durham.
And I assume me?
Yes, you.
I'll second that.
I already said you.
I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion to nominate, this is our ballot, to actually vote for Mark Lunt from Lisbon and Sarah Hall from Durham as the two we'd like on that committee. Is this a roll? This is not a roll call.
Just regular.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Welcome.
That's a very nice write-up about you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next item is Order 2014-120 to move forward with the energy service contract.
Okay. Yep, I'll pass that down.
Hello. I believe you have a copy of a really simple summary sheet showing some of the improvements that we identified to make at some of the town buildings. I'll back up a minute just because we haven't talked about this in a while. But the town and the school committee and council worked together and agreed to go forward with studying the possibility of finding energy savings in our municipal buildings, including the schools, and determine if there was any projects that were available or that could be lumped together into a more of a major project that would result in energy savings at the town buildings and the schools, as well as allow us a means of kind of moving some of these projects forward instead of try to do them a little bit each year. Easy example to talk about is the MTM Center, where we've replaced the boilers, we've replaced the roof. We've been working on replacing the windows and insulating the building. There's still a laundry list of things that we'd like to accomplish. And we went through the process. We had to interview 4 different vendors. We hired Siemens. The school committee and school department has actually decided to move forward with their project. We've been delayed a little bit based on some of our turnover here, as well as just the project scopes themselves. And by separating, we're also able to realize some more benefits from a rebate standpoint. 2 different tax IDs allowed for more opportunities for rebates from Efficiency Maine or wherever. So we've got a list of performance improvement measures that we've identified here. At the MTM Center would be lighting, the building envelope improvements, boiler improvements, as well as electronic management system, which would allow us to monitor the boiler system as well as the rest of the HVAC equipment. Some water conservation improvements, and then there's various roof replacements, mostly at the treatment plant as well as the library. We've got valley problems at this building that we've been dealing with. Those were included in this project as well. And I can get into whatever detail you'd like, but the gist of it is that there's approximately $900,000 worth of work that we can accomplish through an energy reductions service contract. And it's roughly going to cost us $19,000 a year, which would be taken out of the existing buildings budget that we already have. We budget every year for, like I said, the improvements to the MTM building and all these different projects. There's $10,000 in a year for brickwork at the library, and that's basically one side at a time. So there's roughly $40,000 worth of work, and so on and so forth. And what we were looking forward to is moving this project along, signing a contract with Siemens to be able to, or authorizing the manager to sign a contract with Siemens to be able to put this project into motion. And I have Tom Seekins from Siemens, who can provide all kinds of additional information on how these performance services contracts work and discuss any of the other specific performance improvement items if you'd like.
I think it might be good to have the gentleman from Siemens.
I want to ask Ryan a
available
question
for
first.
questions.
Yes.
What about the highway department?
Public Works Department, they are currently in the process of going through the same work that we had to do to generate the project scopes that we have for all the other buildings.
Okay.
So we don't have an answer for that, which is why we recommend that you keep that in the back of your mind, that there's a possibility that if a project is there, be it the roof, the garage doors, any of those other projects, that may be able to fall under this service contract. And we could then free up some of the money that's from the insurance company to improve the Public Works garage that we have.
Well, I hope you can do a little arm twisting.
Well, Tom can speak to that a little bit more, but if you'd like, Tom Seekins from Siemens.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Hello, everyone. So if everyone remembers, and I know there's people watching that probably wasn't here when I did the original rollout, some of you were, on how the whole concept of performance contracting or paid for by energy savings type project worked before you did the interviews and put the request for qualifications and proposals on the street. But should I go over the concept of how it all works? Or how would you guys like me to?
If you have a Reader's Digest version of
Sure.
it, that would be great.
Oh, yeah, of course. Essentially, you guys put it out on the street with conjunction with the schools through some economies of scale of keeping some of the prices down with doing things in conjunction with one another, i.e. being roofs, windows, building automation systems, anything that has an energy aspect to it. If you did it simultaneously, you'd realize some savings by economies of scale by choosing the same company to do both projects. So the school, like the town, they put it on the street for 15 days for qualified energy services companies to respond to be your energy partner. You interviewed 4 companies, I believe. Siemens was the successful bidder of the project, and around February 15th-ish, we entered into the letter of intent to do the investment grade level energy audit, to go through all the facilities, both town and schools, to come up with, we call them FIMs, facility improvement measures that have an energy aspect to them, to help offset the payment to make the investment in the building infrastructure improvements. So like Ryan had just talked about, the new boilers, wastewater treatment plants, there's 2 of them there, the new roofs there, the new windows at MTM and siding, the new burners at MTM, insulation, automation controls at MTM, the valleys in this building. A lot of those some of those have very strong paybacks, some of them do not, traditionally. So as you're aware, it's very difficult sometimes for the things that have a real long payback, like roofs and windows, to get them implemented because they just have such a long payback. But when you run them in conjunction with lighting and building on automation improvements and building envelope improvements, it helps make the payment much more feasible. And if you amortize it over a certain amount of time, it makes the payment much more feasible, almost to a budget neutral proposition, which is kind of what you all wanted to get to. We got pretty darn close. We got a lot done in both the schools and the town facilities, and a lot of them which have been on both Jessica and Ryan and your plans for a long time to get done. Some of them existing issues like the valleys in this facility. So we were able to find a lot of successful measures that had great paybacks. We talked about local contractors. We vetted out all local contractors to do a lot of this work, almost all this work. Everyone that's doing part of this work is in the state of Maine, if not local, right here in central Maine. So all counts, it's a successful looking project. Very, very little that you have to bring to the table. I'm not sure about what you guys have budgeted every year. You know that a lot better than I do, but from what I understand, that's been on your capital plan. It almost is a budget neutral proposition, if I understand correctly from Ryan and Jessica. So.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from council?
The other piece that we're all working on too, I forgot to mention, is the financial piece, and that is trying to apply for an energy conservation bond, which will save you a lot of money. Jessica and I were just talking about we were just filling out the application just now. So that's a low interest bond that helps, that's the service piece of it. And again, it's all paid for by energy savings, and it's probably the best way to go. And again, just saves you money over the long haul and makes the payments much more feasible through the service.
I have a couple questions for you. Slot 13 on the breakdown that we got tonight is empty. Is there something that should be there?
No, just a break between asbestos
Okay.
and the rest of them. We do not do any mitigation of asbestos. So.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's very little anyway. But.
And my other question, I think, is more for Ryan and Jessica, maybe. The cash flow of $19,000 for budget year 2015, how many years would we have to budget that dollar amount?
Excuse me, you currently already have that in the budget. It's not something we would have to add in. It's currently within the 01-140-5400 line. Within that account, we budget for these types of improvements that will be done at once through this energy service contract. So you already have it budgeted. It would be no additional.
I guess maybe I didn't say my question right. How many years will we have to pay the $19,000?
Well, the bond is, what we're looking at is a 20-year, I think between a 15 and 20-year bond, depending on where the rate actually comes in and what keeps it at this level. Every year, what's called cash flow on this sheet of 19,000, it decreases every year because you see more energy savings. So it dwindles down till it's in the opposite role where you wouldn't have anything more to budget, because your energy savings will be greater because you'll have all these economies of scale to put together that will offset this amount. This 19,194 is the largest you will see. It drops every year thereafter.
Do you know what year approximately it'll get to zero?
Well, it's meant to be the life of the term, so it'd be between the 15 and 20 year.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You want to mention that's guaranteed savings?
Oh yeah, that's the most important part. Jeez. I'm not very good at this, am I? So the best part about this whole aspect of performance contracting is it is 100% risk adverse to the town and schools, which is a lot of reasons why municipalities and schools use this method, because if there is a design flaw, on something as a part of the project, thank you, whether it's a boiler, burner, roof, windows, insulation, you name it, any of the measures that are listed on that, we designed it along with the town. So it's our risk. So if there's something wrong, and whether it's in year 1 or year 15, you simply call Siemens, and we're responsible for every aspect of the project. It doesn't matter which contractor did any part of this. It would be back to us to make sure that it's taken care of, and we own it. So. Yep, and the energy savings piece is also guaranteed as well. So if there's a shortfall in the savings, which is making your payment through the service that you're establishing with a local bank, then we make up the shortfall if there's something that happens. So if we feel as though by converting the MTM center to natural gas, you're going to save X amount of dollars, and if there's something that doesn't, say the burner doesn't burn as efficiently as we anticipate it will, then we make the shortfall payment. So, of course, you try to be conservative in all the measures so that, you can account for different things in the facilities, change of use, in buildings, and, not having to write checks is always nice. So if you're conservative and you keep your schedules, the thought here is, in every one of these that we've done in Maine, they've overshot their savings. So that's been in excess of what's been guaranteed on the sheet. So we feel strongly that you'll exceed the savings that are there.
Any other questions? Ready? Okay.
I have a question for Ryan before we go on. On, Ryan, one of the buildings that are included are the wastewater treatment plants. At
Yes.
Is that going to be billed to the sewer department and into the sewer accounts, or is that going to taxpayers in general?
No, I would recommend that we would pay
Out of the sewer account for that portion?
for those
I just want to make sure we're not,
portions.
the other people in town aren't subsidizing the sewer users.
Correct. The $19,194, would be, the entire amount could be covered by what we have currently, but if we break it out based on the percentages of the sewer versus the town, then we could see a decrease there.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much. So we have before us the order to move forward with the energy service contract. Do we have any further discussion? Then I'll look for a motion to accept the order to move forward with the energy service contract.
And
I'll read.
authorize the town manager to execute.
Okay. I'll say it all together this time, sorry. The motion will be to allow the town manager to sign a performance services contract with Siemens Energy and Environmental Services to make improvements to town and sewer buildings based on the scope of services discussed tonight, with the understanding once the Public Works building has been evaluated, an amendment to the contract may be necessary.
I'll make the motion.
And do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Choose whomever you like. And this doesn't need to be a roll call, right? All those in favor?
Order passed, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing all that work for us, for the conjunction of the town and Siemens to get this going. Thank you.
And the next item, please, Twyla.
Is Order 2014-121, the striping bids.
Okay. So, just a little while ago, we did hear from Mr. Layton about why he recommends Lucas Striping.
Markings Inc.
I'm sorry, yeah. Markings Inc. I'm just reading what's on the paper at this point.
That's fine.
Do you have any additional things you'd like to add, Ryan?
I really don't. It is solely at your discretion, I guess, as far as I'm concerned.
So basically, you think that either one of them are fine?
I think either one of them are fine. I will remind, actually, I will say one thing. We only did budget $16,000 in the budget. Well, in the proposed budget.
Okay. So if we decided to go with Lucas, it would be closer to home. We would go over budget.
Potentially. We did, and I'll be honest, last year we approved Markings Inc. proposal, which was actually over budget, with the idea that we always send a person with them, and we'll have them just stop doing striping at a point where we are not going to go over the budget.
How does council feel about this?
I would just soon go with Lucas Striping. Keep it right here. It's only a little bit of money.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I know there's language in our charter that recommends if it's within 5% or so, we should keep it if it's in town, and I think the same principle can apply to the state level.
Have we worked
Maine.
with Lucas before, Ryan?
Not during my tenure. I know that they are in the state.
They haven't-
They're on DOT's approved list. I mean, we send it out to all the vendors that are on the approved list.
Okay.
I think I'd like to do that.
Okay, so I feel that there's a consensus. Will we look for a motion to award the striping bid to Lucas Striping? Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to award the striping bid to Lucas Striping for $16,389.12.
I'll second that.
Okay. And we don't need, okay. All those in favor?
Order passed, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And the next item, please, Twyla.
Is under other business, the GPS program for Alzheimer's patients and lost or stolen bicycles.
Okay. Included in our packets is a letter that Mr. Neto brought to us. He also presented at a previous meeting the idea of starting a GPS program for two reasons: for persons who have Alzheimer's, and also for lost bicycles. So he did a lot of homework on this. I thought it, at face value, at least deserves a look from council. So, Mr. Neto, if you'd come up for us.
Okay, my name is Richard Neto. I'm in Lisbon Falls. I was looking into this program. California has it, and I believe it's San Francisco. A woman who lost her expensive bike went over there, and they actually started a program called Bait Bike. Not every, they put a chip in there, and they're able to track it GPS if it gets stolen or lost. And not every bike will have that chip in there. Don't have to have it. You know, the thief don't know. The thief don't know, but they have a decal that's put on the head tube, which is, like I said last meeting, they put a decal over there, identifies it. But I mean, no crook knows, you know, if that really has a chip in it or it don't. I mean, on this program. Now, Auburn, like I was saying, they have a program like us, issues in radio as tracking device for theirs. But Jeep, I think it's too heavy for a bicycle, like Officer Cheney was saying. It's also put to the ankle of the person, provided, you know, the caregiver wants to do it. It's on the ankle, fastened to the ankle of that person. And they check it about once a month, and they also check it to see if it's been tampered with. And that's their program. Lewiston doesn't have any, and I've talked with a guy named Zach from the Bicycle Coalition of Maine, and I told him I'd let him know what, you know, whatever happened over here. Now, I think GPS is the best way to go, rather than try to triangulate this stuff with radio and stuff. It's there. The satellites are there. They can do this. If we could get some grants or something, we could start something like this right here. Sure, people that have it, that want this thing, they're probably going to have to pay for it. I mean, that's only fair. And for the chip, if they want to have the chip in an expensive bike. If this can save somebody from the same heartache that I had, the stupid thing that I did, leaving it there about no more than 4 minutes outside of this shop near the bus station. That's all it took, 4 minutes. And they took the bike. It only takes a second to cut the cable. They can file the numbers off. There's no problem there. I mean, the police department don't keep it more than maybe over a year, the numbers underneath. They can file those off. But if you put it in a place where it's going to be hard, then they're going to have to work at it. And if they have to work at it, they're probably not going to take it, for one thing. And they don't know, for another thing, if it really does have a chip. And I think it's a good program they started, and it's time we started something here, and perhaps this will spread across the country. This is what we need. And the only reason I can see that they probably took mine, they saw it was good condition, because I kept it good condition, was drugs. If this can stop it, some of this, people doing that for drugs, because sure, I know there's some that kids probably take joyrides with it, probably in the river now or the canal. Pots, who knows, maybe sold down in Boston. Get the money to buy dope. There's a lot up there in Lewiston. And we can stop it. That's what I'd like to do. Now, one thing I'd like to add on the GPS for the Alzheimer's, every 67 seconds, a person is diagnosed with Alzheimer's. By the year 2050, the national debt, unless we can slow it down, it's going to take for the people living at that time, because of the amount of Alzheimer's and people are living longer. Eight out of every person 65 will have Alzheimer's. By the time they reach 85, 1 out of every 2. I'd like you people to give this a lot of consideration. If you need me to help out, I'm willing to help out. It's probably going to be more on the police department. I'm sure they're going to love me. But I'm willing to help out, do my share, if we can implement this. It's really, up to this committee, probably Chief Brooks, and see what we can do. So I'd like to thank you. If there's any questions about this that I can answer, I'll try to answer them of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Neto. Do we have any questions from council for Mr. Neto?
Not to Dick, but I will mention, I think that maybe we ought to ask Mr. Brooks to check in, and maybe this could be something that, where it's nothing billed out of the town, it might be something he can use his forfeiture money on. I know he'll love that, but maybe it's a good thing that he will, maybe it's something he can use, and I think it might be a good idea. I'm not a bicycle person, Dick, but the Alzheimer's thing, does.
I have to agree with Councilor Bickford that I would like the administration to do a little more research for us and come back and see exactly what a device like this would cost, what it would cost to, if it has to get the police department involved, how that would work, and then come back to us with a proposal or a recommendation of what they would do, and see what type of strings are attached for the town, and then we can go from there. But I think we need a little more information on it first.
I think looking into grants would be a good option too, to see if we can, might find even, $500 to buy a couple of bait bikes like that we could, put out around town, see if we can catch somebody. Might be a good idea.
Forfeiture funds.
Right, yes, yeah.
I don't know about entrapment, though. I don't know if that would be entrapment by doing that, putting bikes around town.
Yeah.
I think they'd have to.
Entrapment is if a police officer suggests to
Somebody, why don't you go steal that bike,
they
right?
just simply put it out there, and the X-ray comes by and grabs it on their own initiative. It's not entrapment.
So I see a couple of things that we'd like to look into. I think we definitely need to ask Chief Brooks to look into it. Let's check the feasibility of a program like this here in Lisbon, the costs, the options for funding in terms of grants or other money. And also, I think we need to make sure that we show a specific need in Lisbon. And it's not that I don't feel bad that your bicycle was stolen, but if we haven't had a bicycle stolen in Lisbon for 8 years, it might not gain public approval for us to start a program when we don't have bicycles stolen. So I think we should just look at those things. Also look at the number of Alzheimer folks we have in town. I know you're right, it is a growing problem in every state in the country. And we do have a long-term care facility in Lisbon. So if we look at the feasibility, the funding options, and then also, you know, we know that Chief Brooks is very good at looking for grants and finding ways to do things that are important. So we can see if we can get him on board with that. Thank you very much, Mr. Neto.
Thank you, too.
Okay, the next item, please, Twyla.
Is audience participation for new items?
Okay. So do we have anyone who'd like to speak about non-agenda items? Mr. Fellows?
Well, it's not officially on our agenda. Don Fellows from this side of town. Not too many years ago, various counselors used to be very quick to nominate a certain group in town to do different tasks. And one of those tasks was writing the fireworks ordinance or dreaming it up. Another one was, I think, the adult movie or adult show, adult licensing. And I think that this particular item, if you refer it to Chief Brooks, the GPS program, the Alzheimer's chip program, you might want to advise this or involve the same Lisbon Police Advisory Group, because they're looking for a job and they can be very helpful.
Yep, I think that's a
And
great.
I know Conrad Davis would like to get it involved again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else who'd like to speak? Thank you.
Fern LaRochelle, Lisbon Falls. A few things that I would like to say is this budget process has been pretty tough this year, and I think as any council has been on the council for years and management, there's no good year for budget. I mean, it's always challenging, and it gets more challenging as we go. This year, as I came off the role of council, I actually participated with the finance group, in which we actually kind of looked and kind of how would I say, kind of try to find out a way of how we fit into the budget process, which is pretty tough because it's really interesting sitting on the outside trying to figure out what to do, and it's easy to sit outside the table and make recommendations because you're not the counselor, you know, you're not the ones that actually have to go back and then get stopped in the middle of the while you're shopping and have someone ask you a question about the budget. You know, it's pretty tough. But what I do want to say is this year especially, I mean, I probably went to all but one of the budget meetings. I think the council did a good job. They looked at it. There was some circumstances this year that they couldn't control, as always. Loss of revenue, the idea of expenditures going up. This year the town voted to actually a couple new bonds as far as for the school and for the track, which always is a challenge. But I do say that, you know, one of the things I think we need to do is move on with this budget, you know, and I think we actually spent, as an outsider, I think we spent more time talking about copy fees than we had about a good part of the budget this year, and that's not dissing anybody, but that's just one of the things that seems to happen from the outside. I would like to, as we get a new manager in, I mean, which I think is a really a great opportunity for this town to move forward, I would encourage the council to actually give her a little bit of a professional courtesy and to get this budget behind us so we can move on, and actually, if you do have concerns, to actually allow her to work with you this year on it. And unfortunately, her coming in new is very tough to actually work on a budget that's overdue and that's had months of discussion. I think the people in town voted to do some improvements this year. I think we had a lot of good things coming up. At our last workshop that I attended, you actually asked the interim manager to try to find some extra revenues or expending, cuts about $30,000 to $35,000. It was my understanding that the town departments and management went and actually found those, and the budget still wasn't passed, which is kind of discouraging from the outside looking in as a business owner to see where our council is. And again, I can't actually knock anybody for it because I've sat in the same place, and it's very tough because it's hard to make decisions when it comes to taxpayers and the idea of taxes going up. But I would just encourage you to actually look at the budget. And as sitting on the finance group, we did make our recommendations to try to help out. And, we actually thought that you actually did a fairly good process to the budget season this year under the circumstances you had. It's not every circumstance you can control. The best thing is to do is to kind of, feel your best way through. I would just encourage you to vote on the budget soon to allow the manager to take place. And actually, if you do have big concerns, I don't think it's this late in the budget season to be addressing them. I think it's this next upcoming year you can work together with the finance group, hopefully, and the department heads to work on a budget that actually is going to meet the needs of what we're going to have for next year when some of these bonds come a little bit more due. Just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who'd like to speak?
Lot Fitzgerald again, I'll be brief. Going back to the trail and landscaping, I started in at the boat launch and walked the concrete path, and under the bridge, there's the dirt wall in under the bridge. There's going to have to be some sort of a retaining wall. I don't know if that was included in the budget, if that's going to be coming under landscaping or what, and I'm wondering who is going to finish, the trail, landscape it to the trail. From what I could see, there's going to need some fill and whatever. I'm assuming Public Works is going to be doing that. I don't know. I'd like to welcome Diane Barnes to the town. We're a nice little town. We've had controversies in the past. We'll always have controversies. And I think controversies are good because it gives a differing of opinions. And then when you have a lot of different opinions, you come to usually a reasonable consensus. So that's my opinion. Something else I was going to say. Okay, this is on the ballot, on the agenda, but a particular thing was not on the agenda. Will we be doing a bond on the energy service contract? That was not brought up. How much of a bond? You're saying 15 to 20 years? That was not brought up in the agenda. The service contract is, but on the agenda, you can click on it and get attachments or information on the different items, and this was not highlighted, and there was no information to the public.
We just got it as we sat down tonight, too, Don.
How much of a bond? What is the bond amount?
Oh, that's not on here. Yeah.
So you approved a bond, but you don't have an amount?
Didn't approve a bond.
You didn't? A bond was mentioned, and a term for the bond, 15 to 20 years.
Okay, we'll address your...
I think we need to explain
Yeah.
the whole contract,
Yes.
so go completely understand.
Okay,
This is,
thank you.
Siemens finances this themselves, and then we pay basically the extra above the savings to pay that. It's not actually a traditional bond where we would go to a bond bank and sell Lisbon town bonds on the market. So it's kind of a different way of doing it through this company where they are doing the financing and they guarantee that there'll be savings in a certain range. So we just have to pay them every year as it goes along.
So it's just called a bond.
But it's not actually a traditional bond.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dot. Is there anybody else? All right. Move on to the next item, please, Twyla.
Perhaps you have addressed the council response to new items already? Do you have any others?
I think we have, Dot, your question about the retaining wall, we'll just refer that to Mr. Layton, and maybe we can get an answer to you, and maybe you can, I haven't had a chance to go down there, I don't think many of us have, in the past week or two. Not done yet. It's not done, so it's just not done yet. It's not that we need more funding.
I mean, the concrete ends, and then, there's a lot more work to be done, but...
When is it due to be finished?
Substantial completion at the end of August, that's what they're in the contract for.
So we're still 2 months away from finish. So
But my
that,
question was, landscaping is going to be extra. It's going to cost...
I think we answered that in the previous audience response.
Landscaping in terms of trees and stuff would be extra, but there's going to be some rip wrapping and retaining stuff as part of the project. correct?
Seeding and loaming.
So, I mean, it'll be grassed in, and it will, it's not going to wash out
That's
there.
what I meant.
Yeah, it's not going to be
Yes.
left as dirt or something, no.
Oh, no, I meant...
Yeah, but trees would be extra.
Okay?
Included.
All right, the next item, please, Twyla.
Is appointments. Order 2014-122, Finance Committee renewal, 1 member, 3-year term, expiring June 30th, 2017. The position is currently held by Lori Pomelo. You have 1 application from Lori Pomelo for a reappointment.
I'd make the motion to reappoint Ms. Pomelo to the Finance Committee.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 5-0.
And the next item, please.
Order 2014-123 to appoint the town manager, Diane Barnes, to AvCog's General Assembly as Lisbon's representative. This is the position with no term expiration.
Okay. I don't think we need it. It's pretty clear what that is.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 5-0.
And the next,
Order 2014-124 to appoint Diane Barnes, the town manager, a regular member on AvCog's ATRC Policy Committee, which is the Androscoggin Transportation Resource Center Policy Committee.
I'll make the motion to appoint Diane Barnes.
and a-
I'll second it.
all those in favor?
Order passed, 5-0.
And the next item.
Council Communications.
Okay, do we have any counselors who want to pass anything on?
Certainly do.
We might.
And I'm addressing this to the people. Last month, we approved a bond for the gym for $5.7 million. I just want to reiterate that at the end of the bond, when we pay it off, it'll be almost $8 million. I just want to let the people know that. And I did hear something from our outgoing interim town manager, and Miriam was there at the time, that kind of shocked me a lot, and I am going to tell the people about it. I believe Mr. Green and some of the higher people in the school board told our town manager that if the track bond hadn't have passed, the school could have funded it anyways. I just want the people to know, just to think about that. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Any other communications?
I was wondering if while we're all here, we should think of a next time to meet for a budget, since July is quickly going to come to an end, and we're all very busy throughout the summer.
And I think it's important to remember that the tax rate will be set. So wherever our budget lies on the last day of July, that is where the taxes will be, the tax rate will be set. What that means right now is if we continue to not pass a budget, the tax rate will go up by over 7%. So it's good incentive for council and any others who have good input to workshop diligently and to get this done. I think it's a good goal to get this finished before the end of July so that we can do the best we can by the taxpayers and keep that rate as low as we can. We know that when we first came in on the budget, prior to the bonds being passed, We were just below 5% as an increase. That was already an increase that was difficult to accept. To see it go over 7% is something that I think that we don't find acceptable for our taxpayers. So I would recommend that every counselor dig hard and deep and look through our budget books, look through our notes, and assess where savings could be found. And wherever we can find those savings, we should and we have to. It's our, I think it's our duty to find that savings. I know that the department heads, along with Mr. Olmsted, who's moved on to greener pastures, all worked very, very hard, as did the Finance Committee and many others in getting this budget worked out. It's nearly done, and we need to make the budget our first priority. So that being said, and with your suggestion to schedule, Councillor Pesky, a new budget workshop, what do we see as suggestions from council for the next workshop?
We have the next workshop, the
About
8th.
Yeah, the 8th, next Tuesday.
You guys can have them without me, but I will not be in town.
I'm sure you'll offer your input.
I don't have much input.
The 8th, and then we can vote the 15th.
I would say that if we meet on the 8th, that we should seriously sit down and work through this until we finish it. I feel like we should enter it with a no loose ends attitude. Councillor Pesky, I know that you've been very involved in moving the budget forward, and I trust that you'll meet with the town manager and make sure that your concerns are addressed, so that because we don't want them to not be addressed just because you're not able to be at that meeting, at that workshop. Will everybody be here on the 15th? I think so. Will Greg be back by then? I think he will.
Jared, I don't know.
I think he will. And hopefully, Councilor Mativier is feeling better and will be able to join us.
I think he'll come in on a wheelchair if he has to.
We'll get him a stretcher and haul him in.
We'll do
Okay.
that.
So we will schedule a workshop for Tuesday, July 8th. If we do 7 PM, will that work for everybody?
Yep.
Okay. And that gives our new town manager at least 4 days. And then on the 15th is our next council meeting. If we have need of additional workshop time, we can schedule it in, but hopefully we can work through this and get it done in our next workshop. I think that sounds good right now. We'll move from there. Okay. So we'll schedule that workshop for Tuesday, the 8th, and I'm putting it in my calendar now. Okay. So are there any other council communications? I miss having Gina Mason here because we don't get our weekly updates or bi-weekly updates on the Moxie Festival, but Moxie Festival is really, they're counting it down. So anything and everything that folks can do to help out, they are still accepting and asking for and hoping for more volunteers to help. So anyone who can help in any way. I have talked with Tracy and also with Gina briefly just recently, and things are coming along very well, and I'm very excited about it. I think that it is going to be as always, a bigger and better Moxie Festival, and I encourage everyone to be involved in any way they can. Any other comments from council?
I just want to welcome Diane once again to Lisbon. I had a meeting with Diane yesterday. She has a lot of stuff on her plate, but she has a great attitude to get it done, and I encourage anybody that has questions to go in and see her, give her a phone call, shoot her an email. Very, very easy to talk to, and I think we're good pick for us. So welcome, Diane.
Thank you.
One suggestion I had was I'd like to ask the manager and her staff to make sure that the current budget proposals are up there on the web so that people can see them. I had a couple people complain that we only had the original proposal from back at the beginning of the season, and the most recent stuff isn't up there, so I just want to make sure that it's all up to date.
Especially right now,
Right
we're
now,
in the middle of this process.
citizens can give us good feedback on what's actually proposed.
Thank you, Mark. Okay. Well, along with the rest of council, I am very pleased to welcome Diane on board with us because she came with an impressive resume and strong experience, and we all on council feel that she's a solid choice for Lisbon, and that will definitely benefit from both her experience and her knowledge, and then also her character. And I just am thankful that we were able to find someone through this process, which was a learning process for the entire council, and that we were able to find someone as talented as she is. And I urge anyone to visit her, to introduce yourself or say hello. It's, I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item, please, Twyla.
Is to adjourn Order 2014-125.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Order passed 5-0.
Thank you.
Within the budget of the 22nd, because we're actually also changed Lisbon.
I got it on the calendar
You
for your
did the
annual
22nd?
meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
do.